what was the big break after that kind of like got you known worldwide?
I think it all kind of started when
Hey guys, welcome to the Industry Set podcast, where we interview high caliber artists and discuss all things music marketing, branding, networking, creating opportunities for yourself, production, productivity hacks, motivation, creativity, and much, much more. So basically all the tools required to have a successful career in the music industry. And if you are a music producer and you're looking to level up in all those areas, then be sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. And then so today's episode, we interviewed Gent, who's an Australian artist who's been pretty much making every genre and absolutely nailing every single one that he does. And in this episode, we covered all sorts of different topics regarding productivity, mindset, how he approaches tracks and how he finishes them, how he remains creative despite such a long career that he's been doing this for. That being said, I'll see you in the podcast. Off the bat, so how did you get into music production?
I got into music production in a pretty funny way. The same way as like a few other producers that I know, and it was out of like a cereal box, Nutrigrain specifically. They like had this like really crappy, like it had loops. It was just like Andrew G, this radio host, and he just like put together like these like vocal samples and a few hip hop beats, and you kind of like put them in this really basic DAW. And it was kind of like the first I ever like discovered that you can just like do that. I thought you had to like make all the fucking samples, I thought you had to do it all, but then I was like, oh, I was young too. I was like 8 at the time, but I was like dragging these samples in. And then, yeah, I just kind of like went down that rabbit hole for a while. And then my dad was a guitarist and he had some recording software. And I learned that you could like find and illegally download loops online and kind of just like put all those into this little, it's called Magic's Music Maker, be like Sony Acid, same sort of vibe. And then I got FL Studio when I was like 13, and then went ham listening to Deadmau5 and like that sort of style of like progressive house, similar to you, that's what got me into it. Learned how to make progressive house like a beast. And yeah, went deeper and deeper.
Yeah, so it's funny because when you said about the Nutrigrain box, like my discovery was more so I found Age of Empires through that, and that went
Dude,
down
I
that.
seen that today. Someone posted a photo of like the CD of the Age of Empires and the Kellogg's thing, and I was like, no fucking way, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had no idea that they did something similar, but with production, like selling.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. It was a really basic DAW.
Right.
It was pretty crap, but it done the job.
Yeah. And so my trajectory was the same. But the first thing I heard outside of R&B hip hop was Deadmau5, and that was the first time I saw anything like that. Got me completely down that rabbit hole. And so when you were first starting out with production, were your parents kind of like invested in any way of like what you were doing? Were they just like, oh, he's just doing like some like hobby thing? Or
no, they were invested. Like my mum's very supportive of like all creative endeavors, so she was always like very like listening to the music and being like, this is so good, Jay, like this is so good, like very supportive. And they were good too, like don't get me wrong, some of them were good, some of them were awful, and she'd tell me if they were awful. And then dad was like very supportive as well. He just was always in the back because he could never make a life out of music, so in the back of his mind he was always like, you need a backup plan. You can't just do this music thing. He was always like, you got to think about what else you want to do. And that's a smart thing to say, but I was also just like so confident that I could do it.
Right.
But they were very supportive. Like dad had all this gear and he used to DJ. I used to DJ for his like business or whatever. And we did like weddings and like functions and like, all sorts of shitty events, but sometimes they were great. So I got really good at DJing through that. And I was just like DJing like 80s music, 90s music, and then like popular 2000 stuff. So he supported me in that way for sure.
And so was that the main thing you were doing prior to going full-time with music? Like meanwhile you were trying to like figure out like how to get better and whatnot. What were you kind of doing as like your main work? Or were you like studying or?
I was still at school. I was still in high school. I started making beats when I was in primary school, and then like obviously got a lot of shit for it in primary school because people were like, what? DJ jazz, like what? That doesn't make any sense. And then in high school I sort of like went really deep with it, and then I guess just like juggling, I get home from school, work on beats all day, and then play video games after that. And then like on the weekends, I do the DJing. Yeah. So it sustained me for long enough.
So was your previous DJ alias, was it DJ What?
DJ Jazz, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
right.
DJ Jazz.
So
Yeah,
mine was DJ Axon, but
nice.
ACKSON. So it's just
Okay,
literally
yeah,
my
like your name,
name.
like Jackson. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sick.
And then I was like, oh well, actually nobody has DJ in their name except DJ Khaled, and I don't want to be DJ Khaled.
I don't want
So
to be. Oh, DJ Snake.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one in a million of the only ones that I
Yeah,
know of.
but I also decided like I wasn't just going to be a DJ. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not even a DJ anymore. I only DJ now to showcase my music and my friends' music.
Yeah.
I want to be known for like a producer. That's why I like ditched the DJ thing.
Right. And
And then I
so
was just jazz for a bit. I was like, I
yeah.
can't be called jazz. That's never gonna like. It's just gonna go so under the radar because it's so hard to find it. Like,
So how did you come up with the name of Just a Gent from that?
well, me and my mates like we used to always call ourselves the Gents, and like it was just like our little group name.
Right.
And then I was just like one day I was sitting there like trying to come up with a new alias. You know how it is. Like it's quite hard. It doesn't really happen like when you think of it. But I just kind of like thought of like, oh, I'm just like just a man, like just a gent. Like, oh shit. It like hits. It hits. Yeah.
Just rolls
And
off the
then,
tongue. Yeah.
yeah, and I just like entered some like the first like track I put out under Just a Jet was like a remix competition. You know how like that was the way back in the day, like trying to win a remix comp to get some money or whatever. I mean, for me anyway, that's what I thought was the way. And I think it was like a band called Work Drugs. And that was the first like Just a Gent like track ever. And it was just so low key. It was a burner, and it like did better than all my music in the past. And I was like, "Fuck it, it's got to be the name." So I just like went like doubled down on the name.
Right. So that was kind of like the turning point where you're like, okay, I'm going all in on this name
Yeah,
and
I'm going a
everything.
little Just Jet because I was going by Jacob Grant before that, just like my actual name. Because like jazz didn't take off because it's just fucking jazz. So
Right. And so before you kind of like got into that, like the actual brand there, because you're saying you discovered Dead Mouse at some point, but you were producing from like primary school. Was Dead Mouse already like, or that kind of music already available to you at that time, or was it later on?
No, it was definitely there. It was definitely around. Like a big thing was like the Ministry of Sound CDs. I'm sure you would have been around those as well. And like the Aston Shuffle mixed those bad boys and like that whole world as well. But they spend some Dead Mouse tracks in there every now and then. But it was just that whole sort of like era of like, it wasn't all progressive house music, but it was an era of such creative like electronic music. And I think it was a really good time to get into it because like nowadays it's so hard to like not hear all the same shit unless you go really dig deep. Everything sounds the same. But back then it was like they were all like 128 BPM, but they were all so unique. They were all so different.
Yeah, I'm getting massive nostalgia now of like those Ministry of Sound CDs where like Tommy Trash was in his prime of like Electro House. Yeah,
so good. Yeah, Electro House is kind of what it was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really,
like that was the peak.
Yeah,
because he had like the best sound design at the time. Like
he did, man. So clean, and so unfathomable.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this week's podcast episode, then be sure to check the link below in our description. That's going to take you to a page where you can download some cool resources that's going to help you improve your productivity, your production, your workflow, your marketing, your branding, your social media, and you'll also be able to join our weekly free advisory group calls in the Industry Set group. So if you want to take advantage of those things, then click below and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, like DeBruck and Klein, do you remember those guys? Really heavy electro house music, but it was
I'm
so
not too sure,
tight.
but it does sound familiar.
Yeah, no, they were great, man. So good.
Right. And so at this point, like after you've won that remix competition, what was the big break after that kind of like got you known worldwide?
I think it all kind of started when I sort of put out an original track, and that, remember like dubstep.net, they became like the EDM network, like edm.com. They like put it on their front page and like reposted it on their page and stuff. And like that got a lot of attention. And then I think I did another one with them. Like it wasn't with them, like it was an independent release, but they were sort of just like putting it up and like sharing them around. And that was kind of enough to just get the hype going, because I think at the time, like that sound that I was making was so like different from everything else. So it like really stood out on their page as specifically because it was like dubstep, but it wasn't like dubstep at all. It was like this whole new thing. And people wanted like something fresh as well, I think at the time. Because it's kind of like I was just trying to like meld like progressive house and like dubstep and hip hop all into one. And so yeah, that's what started it for me. But then I sort of like got a manager through that, and he knew like that this song is sick, guys. Like the song is blog, sick. Another blog, yeah. And then like that kind of just started taking things off big time online for me. And then I think the shows started after I sort of like got a booking agent here, and he booked me for a show in at the Ivy, a courtyard, and like that was ridiculous. That was my
Was
first
that
ever
like the
show.
first show? Yeah, right.
First show I ever did. Like I
Yeah.
did all the DJ sets for myself back in the day, but they were nothing like this. Like, this was the first time I got to play my own music live, and like there was 3,000 people. I hadn't even properly used CDJs yet. Like I'd always had the controllers. I practiced a few times at a local club, but I was like shitting myself, dude. I literally like vomited before I played. I was so nervous. 16 in a nightclub, like you probably shouldn't even be there. But it was great. Yeah, it was good. That was kind of like where it all sort of started. And then like it kind of all became a bit of a blur, dude. Honestly, I don't really know. Like I couldn't actually tell you what the big break was, but I think I just was in the right place at the right time, to be honest.
Yeah, because you were pushing out that forward thinking music like kind of just before future bass was really even a thing. Right?
Yeah, it wasn't even really a thing. Like future bass, it wasn't called future bass. Like we were just calling it, like I just thought it was like Seven Lions type music.
Yeah,
That's the only person I knew that did that kind of thing. But mine was like a more trappy version of that.
Yeah.
And then like Flume came along doing his thing, but that was more hip hop than like electronic music. It's you know what I mean? They're not dance music as such. Australians, man. We're on something else.
Yeah. So when you were kind of establishing your sound and whatnot, what was the main hurdle you had with your production at the time? Was there like any specific part of it? I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of different things, but was there one main thing?
I never really struggled with like making songs. Like making songs has always been the easiest part, like writing the chords, like getting the melodies, because that's like the first idea that comes to my head. But I think back in the early days, it was tough to like put down, like it wasn't even the sounds themselves. It was more like the manipulation of the sounds and like trying to sort of get from head to FL Studio. For me, I was like, I've got the chords, I've got the melody, I've got like the drums perfect, but like I couldn't get like, I wanted like these saws to like sort of like sweep into like these like wubs, and I didn't know how to do it at the time, you know, like because I had Silent, I didn't have Serum yet, and I was just like trying to make Silent work in a way that Silent like it can definitely work, but I just didn't know enough about mixing. I didn't know, like I was trying to do everything within Silent, and then I realized like, oh shit, you can't do everything within Silent. Like you've got to do everything else like with a phaser or like with filters, and then like distort the shit out of it post. But at the time I was just trying to do everything within like Silent. Like mixing was kind of a last minute thing for me. I was like, just slam it all and then make it sound okay at the end. So I think I just sort of like needed to step back and like really understand like mixing and sound design more so than like making the songs. Which is kind of the opposite. I feel like a lot of people start with the like learn how to produce, learn how to make crazy sounds before they learn how to make songs. And I don't know if that's a better or worse thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely what the motive is for everybody now. They're all just focused on like making the best sound design and whatnot.
Exactly.
But my thing was always been, I was always trying to make like the best progressions that
like
euphoria as I was
the feels, dude. That thing.
Yeah.
Because progressive house, like that was what that did to us. It like took you in a trance, like made you feel like euphoric as. And I think like a lot of music does miss that these days, especially in electronic music. But I think it's coming back. I think it's coming back full circle.
Definitely. So it's funny how you were mentioning about Silence, because I think it's such an underrated synth.
It is.
I still use it. I still
all
use
the time.
it to this day. I feel like it's like easily the best kind of detuned saws that you can get. I find a lot of the other ones are just too clean, where it just sounds like kind of boring. Like it's warm, but it's not. It doesn't have any like liveliness to it.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Even when you process the crap out of it, it's not the same as Silent.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
Definitely. And so, if you could start over your production journey again, what would you do differently?
Knowing everything I know now, or like going back and having to relearn everything. What do you mean?
Having to relearn everything, but you knew like what you could do to level up.
I don't think I'd change much, because at the time I used all the resources I had. But I think nowadays, like because there's Patreons and there's like way better resources, I think I would pick a producer and I would like just learn everything I can from them, instead of like going on YouTube and like learning, how did Deadmau5 make that sound, you know, and Zeta 2, and I'll be like, Zeta 2's the one, and then I'd buy Zeta 2 and there's one preset on there that I'd use, and then like I wish I sort of went down the route of like learning everything from someone who actually got it. Like I learned a lot from AU5 as well, like his tutorials and stuff. Like that's who really got my head around the Serum. And I do think like I would do that, but I wouldn't change a whole lot else about how I came up, because I think like it worked out really well for me. And yeah, I also think not production journey exactly, but also like musical, like, and creative journey. I think I wish I didn't go down the music business route as much as I did early on, because I signed to all these labels and like had these team members who just tried to control like my brain and like my creative output, which isn't good for anyone. And like I know like it is a business for some people and like you want to make money and whatnot, but I don't think it's about that. I think it's about like fulfilling the soul and like making music for yourself. And I wish I like knew that the whole time, instead of like having to relearn that, because I like lost my love for it for sure. Like a couple of years ago, big time. I was like, what am I even doing? You know, and I wish I didn't have to go through that.
Mm. And so you're also talking about earlier about, because you obviously started at a very early age, but what was the resources that were available that you utilized well? Because would it just been forums? This would have been pre-YouTube
Forums.
era. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a yeah, it was pre-YouTube era, but then like when I got onto FL Studio, YouTube was existing. So like that made it a lot easier. But yeah, it was mostly just forums back in the day. And like that's how I like I think there was one like Gear Slots.
Gear
That
Slots,
was a
Layback Luke forum.
yeah, Layback Luke forum.
Yeah.
Like there was heaps. Like even Whirlpool had a bunch of shit, which is interesting enough. And yeah, I think also just like I had a few friends in the area and stuff as well, and they sort of like told me, they didn't teach me how to use the DAW, but they taught me about music and they taught me about like flow and stuff like that. And I don't know, I think I had enough. And I also like really rinsed the FL Studio like tutorials as well, like the FL Studio Guru and stuff like that. It's actually really handy stuff. It's the actual guys who create it, like put up every time they do an update, they put up like everything about the update. And I would just like consume that to the max and like apply all those things.
Yeah, sounds like you really utilize like everything at your disposal. And so
yeah,
we actually there's actually a student in our Facebook group who had a question for you as well.
sick.
But he was struggling with overcomplicating his music, and he was wondering if you ever had that problem.
Absolutely, I
still
do.
how did you overcome it?
Well, it's funny. Like it's definitely something I've always struggled with, because I think it's so easy to just keep adding ideas, right? But then it's so hard to pick the ones that are the best and delete things. And the only advice I got from like Skrillex and Flume one time, they called me up because I'm homies with What's So Not, and they called me up and like Skrillex and Flume were on the phone, like listening to my new beats, and they both said like, you've got too much going on, less is more. And I was always like, what? No, more is more. And like it's only probably the last like 5-6 years where I've realized like, yeah, it's not about like how much you've got going on. It's about like what, because you got to think in the eyes or in the ears of someone who's not you as well, because you've heard that song a million fucking times. You've already separated every little element in it, and you're hearing every element at a time. But someone listens to that track for the first time, they're not going to know what to listen to. They're trying to listen to like 5 things at once. So you need to make sure like they can hear the one thing that you want them to hear first up. And like that's I think that's what the less is more thing is about. Like not just necessarily having less going on, but also having like less in the forefront, and then like just one main thing in the forefront, like whether it's a synth, whether it's like the drums, like whether it's just like one little pop or SFX or something, just like something that makes you like, oh, you need to have something that people can listen to and latch onto, instead of like 10,000 things at once for yourself. You just got to put yourself out of yourself and like think about how everyone else will consume the music.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. It's something that I used to always make the mistake of, and I realized it was because I'd be spending too much time on a certain track, like a month at a time, and then I'd be adding excess amount of stuff because
to make
I was
it
actually
better.
bored of it. I was actually bored of hearing
dude.
it, and so I just added more. And then I'm like, wait, just because I've already heard it 1,000 times. And like you said, if you show it to somebody who hasn't heard it 1,000 times, they're going to be like, well, this is just too much.
Yeah, and I'm still struggling with that. Like I'm working on an album right now, and because it takes so long to sort of finish these projects, and like I'll sort of like work on this track and then I'll work on another one for a bit and I'll go back to the other track, because I've listened to it so much in between. There's so much I want to change about it. And I don't know if that's something bad or good, but like I end up like having these crazy ideas, and now I think they're even crazier, but maybe they were even better at the start. Like I don't know. I don't really know, because like I'm just picking for what I like best. But yeah, maybe we should just trust ourselves more often.
Yeah.
In the first place. But yeah, I think you're right. We just get bored, man. We hear it so many times. We're like, oh, it's not exciting enough, but maybe it is.
So what's your motivation at the moment for getting into the right frame of mind of producing? Is it just you just show up every day, or is there anything you kind of live by?
I do show up every day. For a long time, I lived like by this motto that I had to create a new idea every single day. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's actually really productive. And I think we can, as like musicians and as creative people, we can probably make 10 ideas a day. You know what I mean? Like easy. But it's hard to do that. And that's like a lot of energy to pour out into doing that. So nowadays I kind of just like I won't work on music unless I feel like working on music. Because I know that it's just a bit of a trap if you just go and work on a tune and force yourself into the seat. Like maybe after 7 hours you'll get in the mood, but then you've just wasted 7 hours of time like mixing a kick or just like listening to the song over and over again, trying to figure out what needs to be done. So like now it's like, especially when creating a new idea, I'll generally only do it if I get the idea in my head first. Like if I'm just walking around the house, like just doing random shit or like out and about, and then I have an idea, I'll put it in my phone and then I'll get home and I'll start. And like it's kind of like I gave myself this idea and I need to like double down on it instead of just like forcing it out. Just to make music that day. But in terms of like working on the album and stuff, it's tough because obviously you don't always want to work on those songs that you've already started like 6 months ago. And so it's just kind of like I've got all these different sort of like styles that I'm working on at the moment. And then like certain days I'm in a certain mood, and I feel like a different mood brings out a different sound from us. Like I don't know if you're the same, but for me, for sure, like if I'm like feeling really like I'm feeling really energetic, I want to make like energetic music. And I'm feeling really down,
Oh,
I want to
definitely.
like get it out and like get those emotions out into the song. And like sometimes you try and like work on a song that you've already started and like in that different mindset, and you end up like completely changing that song because you're in a different mood that day. So I'm trying to like keep my moods consistent with the tracks that I'm working on,
Right. So I
which
can
is
see how that
helping.
might be difficult with the album if you're setting a specific tone. If you're,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And the album
Okay.
is a specific tone. The album is very
Right.
euphoric. The album is very like it's uplifting, but it's not like dance music. It's like I don't know. It's
Right.
different. It's different. It's definitely like a step in a different direction for me, but I'm really excited about it.
Right. So half the battle is making sure you don't have a bad day when you're trying to write, produce, like
I think
produce.
so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Or just be in the right state of mind. And like, doing things before I make music helps as well. Like I feel like as humans, we've got to like almost like be proud of ourselves to be in a good mood. Like if we don't wake up and if we don't do the shit we need to do, like, and we just come in the studio and make music, we've kind of already like started the day off like guilty in a way, because we're like, oh, we meant to do all that shit and now I'm just in here in front of a computer doing nothing. So I find if I sort of like do all the things I need to get done in the day, like all the life shit, like I don't know, just house crap, family crap, take the dog for a walk, exercise, like ground myself, meditate, do yoga, which I haven't been doing lately, which is not good. If I do all those things first and then come in the studio, I'm in a very different place to what I would be if I just woke up and walked in here and forced myself to make a beat.
Yeah. 100%.
Especially when you're doing music full time. Because if you go to a job 9 to 5 and come home, like it's pretty tough to like want to make music, right? Like it's tough.
Yeah. Going on that note about being full time with music, how would you say you keep yourself accountable with showing up every day? Like, is there any like, I don't know, apps or structure you have in place of like making sure you show up every day, or is it just more of like a
No,
daily
not at
journal?
all.
Or
Yeah, I just want to, dude. Honestly, like it's just like it's my passion. It always has been. Like I just love being in front of the PC making beats, and like I want to be here every day. That's the thing. But then the days I don't want to be here, like I just won't show up. And I think that's fun.
yeah, I think that's some good advice as well about like not trying to force yourself when you're not really feeling 100% of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like collaborating as well helps. And I think that's like what's spurred me on for so long as well. Just like being able to work with other people and like get in the room with someone who's got this stunning voice, or someone who can just play the keys and just like inspires you to like ridiculous levels. And you're just like, whoa, like this is what it's about. Like that's also crazy. And that's what inspires me too. Like, and I also make music to try and help people too. Like it helps me, like making music helps me. So I'm hoping in that people who listen to it, it helps them too. And like, that's also what kind of drives me to do it as well.
Definitely. And so what are some workflow tips you would have for like not losing focus on a certain track and being consistent with like actually finishing it?
Yeah. I mean, go with the flow, baby. That's
Yeah.
that's everything. It's just like, let it be what it's meant to be. And like, don't question anything. Because I think like if you start to question it and then like keep working on it, you end up like not even making a song that it was going to be. Like, don't try and conform to a genre. Don't try and conform to a current sound that's trending. Like you start an idea, like you'll know what it needs, right? Like you'll make that progression. You'll be like in your head, you'll be like, oh, I should have that. Like, don't question that first idea that pops into your head. Just make what it is going to be. And then like the next day you can hear it again. And then, oh, maybe I should change that. And then you change that. And then it's done. Don't try and force shit. Just let it flow.
Yeah, that's some great advice as well. I've been having this conversation with a few other people on the podcast as well of how it's very easy to lose your creativity and motivation when you kind of stick to that expectation of the music industry of like making a song in a certain way. And then you're kind of just like steamrolling that kind of production over and over again. And it really takes away your creative spark.
It does. And like, that's what we want to keep going is the creative spark. And as soon as you lose that, you're not doing anything anymore. You're just sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than losing your passion for sure.
Yeah.
And so do you have any productivity hacks, like not just necessarily like with production, but just like productivity in general that you would say keeps you productive?
Honestly, man, I'm not the best person to talk about with productive because I'm not the most productive person. Hey, like I'm kind of shocking.
Yeah.
But I do think just like it's like trying to get off your phone, that helps.
Yeah.
And like try and be bored sometimes. Like that's another thing that I've realized that like a lot of us have like forgotten to do is like be bored. And like as soon as you start to be bored, you realize like proper bored. I'm talking like bored like you were when you were a kid. You know what I mean? Like bored, like fuck. Thank you. Like so bored that you're just like, oh, nothing to do. But then as soon as you hit that mind space, like all of a sudden you want to be productive. Whereas if you're like forcing yourself to just be productive because like, oh, I got to do all this shit. I'm just going to go. It's like draining, dude. It's draining for me. I'm only talking from my own experience. So I feel like don't distract yourself all the fucking time because like that's something we all struggle with nowadays is just like distract, movie, Netflix, TikTok, make beats, play video games. Like instead of just like chill the fuck out, being with your own thoughts in your own head and then sort of like planning it all out. But yeah, I'm not the most productive person. That's something I'm trying to work on as well.
I mean, you definitely are productive because like you're able to like smash out a high volume of music consistently. So
yeah, I'm very productive with my music, but that's also because like music is my fucking life. Like you'd be the same. Like everything you hear is a new song. Like you'll hear like a bird outside whistling a tune. You'd be like, damn, dude, that's hot.
That's loud.
That's nice. And then like you'll just like scratch something on your table. Like, oh, that's nice. I'm gonna sample that. Like. Yeah, it's constantly, there's always a beat going in my head. So just like getting in front of a computer is like therapy for me because I'm finally like getting those noises out of my head into a computer. That's why I'm so productive with my output.
Definitely therapeutic in that way.
Yeah, and I think another thing that helps for me as well is not being on a label and being independent because it is all on me then, and I have no one to please.
Right.
I have no one to like question anything. It's just like it's whatever the fuck I want. It's whatever I want to put out. I can put out. But I'm in a fortunate place that I have a fan base, that I can do that. But it shocks me how much like creative control people take over artists these days. And
right. Yeah,
I think that's what slows a lot of people's down. Yeah, for sure.
And so currently, what are the top 5 plugins you're using at the moment?
Top 5 plugins I'm using at the moment. All right, let's go. For sounds, I'm a big advocate of 3x oscillator in FL Studio. It's just 3 oscillators, basic shapes, but it's very powerful, quite a clean sound, and you can manipulate it in so many ways inside FL Studio because it's an FL Studio native plugin. I also use Citrus to a lot, which is another FL plugin, and then Serum and Silent for my sounds. That's pretty much the 4 go-tos. And then for like mixing, I got a really good one lately called Stab. It's like Stab with a 4 as the A. And it's a multi-band transient processor. So you can like really get shit tight, like really tighten things up like arps and like drums. It's the best transient processor I've ever used. It can like really make or break a mix. And then just FabFilter, bro, like Pro Q, Saturn.
For sure.
Big advocate for those plugins.
Definitely. And so to finish out the podcast, what can people be expecting from you for next year? So like the album and stuff.
Yeah, the album. So I'm gonna probably drop a lot of singles, just because I think these days people have a very short attention span, and like putting out an album is tough because people listen to the first 3 songs, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's a vibe, and then they'll just like never listen to anything else. So I'm gonna drop like a probably like 9 tracks, and probably do like 3 of them with like money behind them for like PR and like radio. Like I'm gonna try. Not gonna happen, but I'll give it a go. Like radio support and stuff like that. And then drop the album, and then I'm gonna I'm planning on, instead of doing a tour, I want to throw like a huge doof in New South Wales or Queensland, and like just bring all my mates out. Like if you want to come play, dude, come play. It's gonna be epic.
Big
Yeah,
rave,
just like one stage. Yeah, big rave. Yeah, in the bush. And yeah, just have all my mates there, and I reckon that'd be just a vibe, dude. Play like a 3-hour set, just play all the new music. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming through on this podcast. It's been great. I think a lot of people are going to get it, like a really good value, especially about a lot of the stuff you talked about with like motivation and like mindset. And
I hope so, man.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Because like it is hard. Like even like we all struggle with it. Like you would struggle all the time. Like it's tough. And like sometimes we just need to be reminded that like we're good at what we do. And like what we make is never bad. It's just like we're always getting better, and like we can make no wrong choices. You can't make a wrong choice. Not in music.
Definitely.
Anything goes.
Definitely.